Good morning and welcome to our thought for the day for Wednesday, the 15th of February. It's a very short reading, and I'm reading from the New Living Translation. It's Mark chapter 8, verses 22 to 25. When they arrived at Bethsaida, some people brought a blind man to Jesus, and they begged him to touch and heal the man. Jesus took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. Then, spitting on the man's eyes, he laid hands on him and asked, "Can you see anything now?" The man looked around. "Yes," he said, "I see people, but I can't see them very clearly. They look like trees walking around." Then Jesus placed his hands over the man's eyes again. As the man stared intently, his sight was completely restored, and he could see everything clearly. Jesus sent him home, saying, "Don't go back into the village on your way home." A short little passage. And often in the Bible, when you're reading a passage like this, it's the tiny little details which are important to help us to understand what's going on. At first sight, it's Jesus meeting a man from the village who is blind, and he's asked to heal him. And like many situations in the Gospels, Jesus lays hands on him, and the man's sight is restored. So far, so good. Jesus performs a healing miracle, and someone is healed. But it's the little details which are quite striking in this passage. The location is Bethsaida. Bethsaida, a little village at the top of the Sea of Galilee, not very far from Capernaum, where Jesus began his ministry. Bethsaida was the birthplace of Peter and Andrew and Philip, three of his disciples. It's an area he knew very well. And the little details begin to point to perhaps Jesus' relationship with the village. When the man's friends presumably brought him to Jesus, Jesus takes him by the hand and takes him out of the village, away from the prying eyes, away from any crowds that possibly could gather around. Then, in that private situation, he lays hands on him after spitting. And the man has this two-stage healing. It's not instantaneous as with the other healing miracles. Perhaps Jesus is showing that for some healing we need to continue in prayer before we see complete restoration. Then, at the end, Jesus tells the man, "Don't go back into the village." Perhaps he's not an inhabitant of Bethsaida. Perhaps he lives in the locality, perhaps another village or out in the countryside. We don't know. But he's told not to go to Bethsaida. Bethsaida, in Matthew chapter 11, there's a famous verse that says, "Woe to you, Bethsaida and Chorazin. If the miracles that have been performed in you had been performed in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But as it is, it'll be better for those two cities than for you on the day of judgment." So Jesus had performed many miracles in Bethsaida. He had displayed many wonders, but people took him to be a miraculous healer, but paid no attention to his message or to who he was himself. And because of that, Jesus is not at the beck and call of people who need a healing. He is the Son of God. He has a mission to come to earth to perform. And miracles are a sign of the inbreaking of the kingdom. They're not the be-all and end-all. And that perhaps that's why Jesus says to the man, "Don't go back to Bethsaida. Don't cause up a stir of publicity. Don't get people talking again about the fact that I heal. But this is for you. This is God's gift to you, God's grace to you, that your sight is restored." And that power encounter that the man has with Jesus, I'm sure, would have revolutionized his life. those famous lines of John F. Kennedy, ask not what the nation can do for you, but ask what you can do for your nation, perhaps are echoes of this, that we are not to see God or to base our relationship on him for what we can get out of that relationship, but our relationship as creatures towards our Creator, and not because of what we might receive, but because of who he is, that he is worthy of worship. And as we understand that, then the miracles do occur. Healings do still take place, and people are restored. It is the sign of the kingdom extending. So perhaps today, a chance to reflect, a chance to examine ourselves and ask, what do I want from my relationship with God? Do I have a list of things which I want him to do for me? Or is it an open-hearted, God, you are my King and my Lord, and I will serve you wherever you ask of me, wherever you take me, and I will do whatever you want me to do and pay whatever the cost, because you have the words of eternal life, and in you is forgiveness of sins and the promise of life everlasting. God bless you today. Amen.